Hey everyone, this is Daniel with Drafty Sports, and in this video I'm going to take you through 5 auction draft nomination formats. Now these are the 5 nomination formats that we have available at draftysports.com if you're using one of our draft rooms, but they are probably not available on other sites. In fact, I think we are the only draft site that gives you options for your nomination format. If you're brand new to auction drafts, you might be curious what nominating is. The nomination process is simply the way that you choose the sequence of players who come up for auction. So in this draft room, if I look on the right side under undrafted players, these are all the players that are available to auction off and put on teams. And Team 6 just nominated Marquise Brown, and so now this is the live auction draft format. So now bidding is taking place for Marquise Brown to decide who is going to win him and earn him added to their roster, who's going to add him to their roster. So that's just a very baseline. If you are brand new to auction drafting, that is what the nomination process is. Now, if you draft on a mainstream, I'm going to say mainstream site like ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, wherever your league is hosted for the most part, the default and most common nomination format is a straight turn-based nomination format, round robin. That's what we call it, round robin. And that is very simply just a turn-based format that where a team can nominate a player, but only in between auctions. So right now, Marquise Hollywood Brown just finished his auction and was added to Team 8's roster. So now we are waiting on the next team, Team 7, as you can see by the indicator right here. Team 7 is now nominating, and the whole draft is waiting on him to choose a player to nominate next. Now, because I am the only real person in this draft and everyone else is an AI, then you see right here Team 7 is nominating, and they have 5 more seconds left to nominate. When that gets to 0, Team 7 is automatically going to nominate. That happens when, if I go to draft settings, we have auto draft right here. Auto draft is turned on. If auto draft is turned off and that timer gets to 0, that team does not nominate a player automatically. The turn gets skipped and it proceeds to the next team who is eligible to nominate. So in a straight or round robin nomination format, that's it. The turn keeps progressing until somebody nominates either randomly because their timer expired, or until we get to a team who is eligible. What I mean by eligible, this is one of the FAQs that we get, is what happens if the nomination turn lands on a team who already has a full roster or they've already spent their entire budget. And what happens in that case is that their turn is automatically skipped, and it will the automated nomination format will proceed to the next team in the turn sequence until it finds a team that has eligibility to nominate, meaning that they have at least one roster vacancy available and they have at least $1 in their budget. So that is just the most basic format that you have available. Also, an FAQ that we get is the opening bid automatically placed? Yes. When you nominate a player, like Team 8 is about to nominate Miles Sanders, so now you see Team 8 has claimed the opening bid for $6 for Miles Sanders. And let's see, is that the minimum bid we've set in this draft, $6? No, it is not. So that team randomly set an opening bid that was a little higher than the absolute minimum bid that they had to. So that's what happens in an automated format. Now, if it so happens, well, we'll talk about that in a later, because it's not possible for it to happen in round robin. So let me go ahead and pause here. We see it's Team 9 is drafting now. Let me reduce the timer so we don't quite wait so long for these teams to nominate. I'm going to reduce that down to 15 seconds. And I'll go ahead and change this to a snake format. Now, because I changed the nomination format, I do need to refresh my draft room. In fact, everybody in your draft room would need to refresh if for some reason you are changing the nomination format mid-draft. The only time I can imagine you would want to do that is either in a mock draft and you're playing around with the different nomination formats, or if you have a strange well, not, I mean, strange and pretty cool league tradition where you change the nomination format mid-draft. So that would be pretty cool. So now we have Team 9 nominating. We reduced the timer down so they're already expiring and drafting or nominating their next player. So they nominated Cam Akers. So since I have this handy-dandy fast forward button, I'm just going to go ahead and skip Cam Akers so that we get to Team 10. And I'll go ahead and reduce this draft time or this nomination time even further. The minimum is 10 seconds, so I'll leave it there. Just so we can progress this and you can see the snake happen when we get to Team 12. So Tom Brady is now up for auction. Everybody's bidding. Wonderful, but we skip him with the fast forward button. So now Team 11 is nominating right over here, you see. And if I hover over a player myself, you see I don't have a nominate button. There's no way for me to nominate. I can add players to my watch list, which is handy if I'm trying to keep an eye on certain players. Antonio Gibson, go ahead and skip him. These teams that are winning are getting a deal because we're moving so fast. All right, so now Team 12 is nominating, and you see the indicator is still facing down, meaning that we are progressing straight down our draft order. And he nominated A.J. Dillon. So when we expire A.J. Dillon, this indicator should remain on Team 12, but then it's going to snake back in the reverse direction. And so that's the difference between a round robin and a snake format, whether it's a turn-based sequence of any kind, whether it's nomination or maybe a poker auction or a snake draft versus a straight draft. When you have that snake, it reverses the draft order anytime you get to the first team or the last team. So they have two turns back-to-back like that. So Team 12 just nominated again, Brandon Ayuk. And that's all you really need to see. So round robin and snake are pretty much identical except for the turn sequence that snakes or not. So now let's move on to winner picks next. And I've changed the format, so I'm going to refresh the page. I'm doing it with Control R because I'm on a PC. You can do it with Command R if you're on a Mac. I believe F5 also refreshes a browser for certain kinds of computers. So when we resume this is now winner picks next, and this is a Drafty exclusive format. You're not going to find anywhere else in an automated draft room. And what happens here is whoever wins the auction gets the privilege of nominating the next player. So it's similar to your turn-based formats, only in that the nominating takes place in between player auctions. So while bidding is happening, while Brandon Ayuk is actually on the block here, I still cannot nominate. But if I were to win this auction with an $18 bid, then the turn should come to me. And indeed it does. And you hear that ping, that means it is now my turn to nominate. And so if I come over here, now I have a nominate button. So I can nominate any player for $1 and I let my time expire. That 10-second timer got me. So because my time expired, I automatically nominated Alexander Madison. You can turn off auto draft if you don't want someone to automatically nominate if their timer expires, but as commissioner, I tend to take a stricter line on that sort of thing. If you run out of time, sorry, it's just the way it is. So that's winner take next. Same thing applies to winner take next. The automated system is going to look for an eligible team. So if I win a player, but that's the last player on my roster and I no longer have any roster vacancy, then it's going to switch to a round robin format just to scan our list of teams and look for an eligible team to nominate the next player. So if I win the auction, I cannot nominate the next player if my roster is full. If I'm Team 1, instead, what's going to happen is the system is going to look at Team 2. Are they eligible to nominate? Then they get the next turn. If they're not, it goes to Team 3. And then Team 4, and then Team 5. It's going to go straight down the draft order until it finds a team that's eligible to nominate the next player. So that's how the winner picks next format takes place. Let's pause here and switch over to the freeze tag format. Now this is the default format on Drafty. I'm going to refresh my draft room again. Okay, so now here we are. Now that our draft room is reloaded, we are in the freeze tag nomination format. This is the default nomination format on Drafty. And the beauty of this format is that it eliminates the downtime in between player auctions. And how it does that is that we now have this nomination queue box, and we allow any team to nominate a player as long as they are not on cooldown. And so here at the beginning, if this was the beginning of our draft, any team could nominate a player to land first in queue. And so as soon as I hit start draft, we should start to see these AI teams nominate a player. And so as I peruse, maybe I want to nominate James Robinson for $1. Maybe I want to increase that to $6, and I'll nominate James Robinson. So now you see I am on a cooldown, and my time limit is set to 30 seconds. You can adjust that in draft settings, and I cannot nominate again until my cooldown runs out. Now my cooldown started right away, and that's because the player I put up for that I nominated came up for auction right away. If I were to nominate a player now, which I cannot do, but if I was one of these other teams, then my cooldown would not even begin until my player comes up for auction. So you see that a couple other players just got nominated from other teams, Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams. And so we have no downtime now in between our player auctions because we're building out this nomination queue. There's Hunter Henry, Jerry Jeudy, Darius Slayton getting nominated down below. And now my cooldown has expired, so I can nominate, let's say, Chris Olave for $6. And so if I scroll down, now I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sixth in line with my nomination, which means I have a nominee in queue and I cannot nominate another player until Chris Olave comes up for auction. So this seems kind of chaotic because I know it's very unorthodox. We're used to that turn-based format, but it does eliminate that downtime, which is going to shave up to an hour and a half off of your total draft time. Even more if you have a really big draft, like a 30-man roster or something. And it's really fun, and it's not as chaotic as it seems, because in practice what you're going to find is that the teams in your draft are not paying a whole lot of attention to their nomination cooldown. And so what you're going to run into is a situation where your queue is empty. This will probably happen a few times during your draft. Your queue is empty, and you have to wait on someone to nominate a player. Now, hopefully when that happens, what I've seen happening is usually 3 or 4 or 5 teams all nominate a player at the same time, and you don't have to wait on the queue again for quite a while until everybody stops paying attention again. So it's really not as hectic as it seems, and eliminating that downtime really, really helps because, again, it shortens the total duration of your draft. So that's pretty neat. Now I will talk about just a couple other things. The automatic opening bid definitely happens in this format, unless, see, I nominated Chris Olave for $6. So if Chris Olave finally comes up for auction and I have either filled up my roster or I no longer have $6 in my budget, then Chris Olave comes up for auction and anybody can claim the opening bid for the minimum bid amount. So in this draft, the minimum bid is $1. And so if Chris Olave comes up and I don't have $6 for that opening bid, then he comes up at $0 and anybody can claim the $1 opening bid. Okay, so that's a little bit different from the turn-based formats because you can't even nominate if you don't have the funds to pay for that opening bid. So this is really, really fun. So Chris Olave is now on the block, and you see that my nomination time, my cooldown is now active. It's at 30 seconds. And so that gives us enough time to bid on Chris Olave and make sure his auction goes through. And if I'm paying attention, I know that I'll be able to nominate here again in just a minute. But like I said, more than likely what's going to happen is that I'm not paying attention, and it'll be a few more turns before I actually realize, oh, I can nominate another player. So really, really fun. I hope you guys enjoy the freeze tag format. Let me pause and switch to the last format that we need to talk about, the Czar format. Hopefully this is kind of self-explanatory. I'm going to refresh the page so that the nomination format functions properly. I'll go ahead and restart this draft. And now you see we still have that, because I switched to this mid-draft, we have this queue of players already in place. But if you're starting with the Czar format from the very beginning, this queue would be empty. And now the only team that can nominate is me. I am the only person that can nominate because I am the Czar Supreme. And so if you have an unusual nomination format, like maybe some contests or something that you do in real time offline, this is the format you want to select because the commissioner controls the whole thing. So you can decide who, by whatever means necessary, decide who gets to nominate the next player, who is that player that they want to nominate, and then the commissioner can come over here and nominate that player. So I just nominated Dawson Knox. I can also right away nominate several other players. Interesting. And the Czar format enables you to make sure that that sequence is in place. Another thing to mention about Czar is that as I nominate these players, I just because I am the Czar, I am not entitled to the opening bids. So when it gets to these Czar players coming up for auction, there is no team claiming the opening bids. So it is possible, and this is the same thing with the freeze tag format, if for whatever reason a player comes up and the nominating team has already run out of budget, nobody claims the opening bid, maybe DJ Shark started at 0 and no one bids on him. What happens is that that player returns to the undrafted player list and can be nominated later. So that's going to be more common with your Czar nomination format if you're doing something like a team by team draft, because maybe no one wants Ronald Jones or Keyshawn Vaughn, and so those players might come up, receive 0 bids, and they just move on. So it's a lot of fun, and this definitely gives you the flexibility to do whatever offline nominating process that you want to do for your league. Just select the Czar nomination format, and you can have what you need. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy using Drafty and our premium draft rooms with these great nomination formats. If you have any questions, feel free to email me questions at draftysports.com. That's the email address. Hit us up on Twitter at draftysports. Subscribe to us on YouTube so that you get notified of tutorial videos like this. I don't put out very many, so I promise I'm not going to blow up your newsfeed. And so, yeah, thanks for watching, and have a great